Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. We'll get started in 1 or 2 minutes here. We'll allow for a few more people to join if they haven't done so yet. Thank you again for taking the time out of your busy days to join me and my guest for another week of the Mindset Conquest webinar series. It's fantastic to see returning webinar attendees and familiar names. Really appreciate the new ones joining today. All right. Well, welcome everyone to our webinar today on optimizing organization and prioritization in CRM. Many of you have participated in these webinars over the last couple of weeks, and what I've done is I've put together a series of discussions with industry experts designed specifically for manufacturers rep agencies. And in this session, I'm going to be having a conversation with Kyle Spangler. And Kyle specializes in CRM, data analytics, and other technologies. So really excited to have Kyle with me today. He's got over a decade of experience working with large manufacturers and has been through the ropes when it comes to implementing CRM systems, gaining adoption, best practices, integrations, all of that stuff. But I don't want to steal away his thunder. So Kyle, why don't you take a moment to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Thanks, Chris. Really excited to be on here. This is really cool, this series of webinars that you're putting on. My background is in manufacturing. I got an education in engineering, kind of started there. I worked on an inside sales team. It was my first role, quoting, following up, doing all that typical inside sales type stuff. And then had an opportunity to move into product management. And that was more for another valve manufacturer, more on the oil and gas side, focused on downstream. And that was my first kind of look into product management, and found a good differentiator pulling data out of our systems, our ERP specifically, and providing that data to management and trying to gain insight from it. And then moved to another valve manufacturer where I started to get more exposed to the commercial side of the business. So commercial construction and all the dynamics that come with that. And that's where I got a lot more involved with the CRM. I was kind of noticed for having an eye for the data and data architecture, and started helping out a lot with the CRM, so that because I wanted to get insight from it as a product person, to know what was happening in the market, what our salespeople were hearing from the customers, and that type of thing. So I've got a lot of experience from a manufacturer's perspective, worked with a lot of manufacturers reps, and have a good hold on the data and the types of data that's generated in a manufacturing operation.
Amazing. Well, let's dive into it. Thank you for that intro, Kyle. Appreciate it. One of the most common challenges that I see working with manufacturers rep agencies is the fact that they're not necessarily using the CRM to its full potential, mm-hmm. right? Or maybe they're not even using it in the simplest way at all. Mm-hmm. So mm-hmm. what are some of the most common inefficiencies that you've seen in CRM practices? Yeah. And what can businesses do to address them and get more organized?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So the most common things that I see is a lot of the times, especially for a manufacturer's rep, I would be weary of trying to do too much all at once, right? I mean, the goal of a CRM stands for customer relationship management, and it's really about capturing all the information that you generate from the back and forth with your customer, the opportunities that your customers are bringing you, projects, the leads. It's about consolidating that information so that you're storing it somewhere so you can use it effectively in the future. So you want to engage with your CRM that works in a way that works for your business, not trying to fit your business into the CRM, right? Wow. So if that means, you capture a quote and you just capture the total, because that's a lot easier than capturing every single line item on that quote and tracking that and trying to make sure that that's harmonized with your manufacturers, then just capture the total if that's the most important stuff to you. Really try and keep it simple. Try and, most CRMs will come with out of the box record types like opportunity, account, contacts. And these are the same whether it's a manufacturing company in construction or whether it was pharmaceutical sales rep. This is the same kind of thing. So try and, use those basic building blocks and then add on the things that make sense for your business slowly, right? Like quotes won't come out of the box blocks for a lot of CRM. Or the idea of a construction project that could have multiple quotes attached to it, maybe to multiple distributors, or maybe there's a quote for the mechanical and a quote for the plumber. So just trying to keep it simple and make it an effective tool for your business, because the goal is really to be able to share information throughout the business, share the intelligence that you're gaining. If you talk to a customer and you gain some insight about a project that's in my territory, this is a great way to save a lot of emails, keep that information in one place, and it can be referenced 24/7. So just keeping it simple, because the next challenge is that the data inside the CRM is incomplete, which usually comes from trying to bite off too much. So you don't want to burden your team with a lot of tedious record keeping and all of this type of things that can lead to burnout and all that type of stuff we're trying to avoid. So it's really important that you keep it simple, and then what you do commit to, you keep it complete so that you can really depend on that information. You don't want to be in a situation where you check the CRM and you're kind of second guessing everything that's in it because it's not up to date, and maybe you can't get a hold of the person who entered that information, and so now you're kind of left like, can I trust this? Can I bank on this? So just having good really good diligence about keeping things that you commit to, keep them entered and complete, and do those types of things. That's a lot of common inefficiencies, and I'll mention one more, which is having duplicate records. I see this a lot. So be careful with naming convention. If your manufacturer refers to a certain corporate entity in a certain way, they say CO instead of company, try and duplicate that in your own CRM. There's an idea in web development and databases about unique ID. Try and get that one for one as much as possible, because that will help a lot with making sure that things are not out of sync in different areas, or you're not capturing all of one customer because you named it two different ways.
Yeah, what a great point. So what I'm hearing is that when you're using a CRM system, keep it as simple as possible. Focus on the most critical things, right?
Mm-hmm.
To me, in sales, the most critical thing is driving revenue. So opportunities are number one. Manufacturers see a lot of value in, right? But if you're tracking opportunities, you should be able to tie those activity journals to those opportunities regardless. So why do all the other activities if you're driving opportunities and ROI? The next thing is record keeping. So what I heard here was be careful of duplicate information. And also, if there's certain language that your manufacturer is using, rather than create your own name for this thing, just use the same name. So then everybody's speaking the same language. That makes total sense. Yeah. And that way you can use that data far more effectively, right?
Correct.
It's going to allow you to enhance decision making, communicate with your manufacturer partners, your end users, whatever it may be. But let's dig a little deeper on data analytics. Like, you've got these databases that hopefully are complete, right?
Right.
Let's talk about how can data in the CRM be used to enhance decision making. Give us some examples.
Yeah, I mean, this is where the real benefit actually comes in, right? I mean, there's definitely more upfront work from having a CRM, but the benefits come in a couple different ways. They come in everybody being informed, but also in the side of this analytics, right? So you want to know how you're faring in the marketplace. Are you winning market share? Are you losing market share? Are you, right now we have a really robust construction market in the US, right? So even if you are kind of standing out in front of that, you should be catching some of that wave, right? And so trying to measure if you're winning or losing and where exactly, right? This is what a CRM can help you do, because even a simple report of looking at where hit rate across different manufacturers that you represent, or different customers, right, can tell you where to spend more of your time. If you have a hit rate of 10% versus 30%, for example, that's threefold difference on the amount of opportunity, or you could look at it as a third of the time you have to spend to capture the same amount of business, right? Because time is so precious. So that's where and that's some really simple views you can set up within just about any CRM system, is to look at manufacturer, that you're representing, see how you're competing there, which manufacturers are you, and then challenge your manufacturer. If you're not seeing success and you're quoting consistently and kind of following the rules, so to say, that they put out in front of you, and you're still not seeing success, challenge them and ask for more. And now you have this whole database to kind of back up your argument rather than just an angry email. It's like, look, I've missed 7 opportunities because I didn't have this product, right? That's a lot more power. And then you can quantify that into a number of business, an amount of business. That's a really powerful thing to go back to those stakeholders and try and get your things pushed through. So analytics on that side, I would say by product, by customer, by manufacturer. Look how you're doing, how successful you are. And
Yeah.
then, I mean, there's also even within kind of the dynamics of the sales cycle, how long is it taking you to close? From the time that opportunity enters the CRM to a closing, what's that average time? That can be really helpful for financial planning. And everything I said about customers, you can also do along segments. So I think it's important, in construction to understand you have so much dynamics between the contractor and the engineer, the building owner that are happening, right? And trying to find where you're most successful, where your product lines line up the best, where that gives you the best chance of success. You can do that in a data-driven way with the CRM.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So many neat little data points that you can pull out. I just posted a quick little poll here for the crowd. If you wouldn't mind taking a moment, what are you currently using a CRM system? Are you looking at implementing one soon? Yes or no? Let's get some answers from the people in the attendance. And then there's a second question attached to that as well. If you are using one, which one are you using? I'm going to say, there we go. And as we submit those, we can see the results pop in.
And Chris, one thing I thought was kind of interesting when I was just doing a little research for this, I mean, the CRM market, there's a lot of options, right?
Of
So,
course, of course.
that's
Yeah.
it's a very diverse selection. Salesforce dominates. They from the reports I could see, at anywhere from 25 to 30% market share.
Wow.
And then after that, you have Microsoft Dynamics, HubSpot, but those only have 5 or 6%. The top 5 only had about 40% of the market. So there's lots of different options. Learn how to export your data so that you can move from one to the next if you need to, if it's not working for you.
Yeah. And it's nice to see that the people are adopting CRM across the
Okay.
board. I certainly uh, remember the days when I was in a sales role, outside sales role, and everything was tracked on Excel. My boss was the one who managed it. We had to do the inputs on a weekly basis on Fridays in a boardroom together so that it didn't get
Yeah.
compromised. And now you just have this live day-to-day, woven into the fabric of your business opportunity. And I'm seeing here we've got quite a diverse usage here. You've got people on Nutshell, Rep Assist, Odoo, Excel, right, which is perfectly fine,
Yep.
and Salesforce. Can you expand on that a little bit? Like, let's talk about what CRM, what a CRM, what makes it good, and like, is there really a ton of value in investing in the most expensive one, for example?
Yeah. I mean, again, kind of going back to it's got to work for what you're trying to do, right? And in general, for a construction company and a manufacturing firm, and a rep as well, that process of the construction project, so that's not going to come in any CRM. So you're going to want some level of customization
Yeah.
that you're allowed to add a field to something, or you're allowed to create. It's called a new record type. So we talked about opportunities and accounts and contacts. Those are record types. You might need a quote record type. So you want to look for some flexibility, because generally you're going to want to do some adaptation because of the dynamics of construction. They're pretty unique.
Hmm.
So, but that means, I mean, you mentioned Excel. I mean, there's all kinds of options. I know Graham was on here last week. I'm sure he was talking about Notion, which I use as well. And that is just like a very flexible platform that allows you to set up databases and set up relationships. I mean, all that a CRM really is a relational database, and that means you've got accounts and contacts, and those contacts have a one-to-many relationship. So you can have many contacts for one account. You can have maybe many opportunities for a project, and it allows you to express very complicated relationships. So just being able to like find a system that is lightweight, that works for you, has those basic opportunities, accounts, and contacts out of the box. And then, I would just again keep it simple and really I don't have a strong preference for one. I've worked with Salesforce a lot in my career. But I've also made systems kind of as a side projects and stuff as well. And you don't really need all of that. You just need a good, robust database where the relationships are strong. Use things like choice lists. So you want to have like options to make your own choice list because that will keep your data consistent. It'll help with that duplicate record problem because people can only choose from one or four things. So I'd look for flexibility. And I would be weary of anybody that was trying to push a lot of features and things onto me right away. I would just
Yeah.
start small and focus on adopting it and making it part of your day to day. Um, I would also mention, I mean, there's fancier stuff out there. We can talk about kind of recent trends and stuff, but like integration. So does it integrate with your email? A lot of these are offering that type of thing where I can click a button from Outlook or Gmail and send that to the CRM, and
Right.
it maps that data. So I think that those are really effective integrations. Those are starting to become standard place amongst the major ones, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
so I pick one, learn how to export so that if you don't like it, you can take all of your data and put it in another one. I would strongly suggest learning that step to just, then you can really control things and you're not beholden to any single system.
I think that's a great point you make. You're never tied to just one system,
Right.
right? You can move things over and migrate things over to any CRM system at any time if you really want to,
Yeah.
right? And especially now that there's a lot of new technologies advancing and coming out.
Yep.
So, I've seen numerous clients, and I went through it working for manufacturers as well, where we migrated from one platform to another. And to
Mhm.
your point, just have somebody who's the champion when it comes to data management, that knows how to export everything so that it's real easy. And in fact, you can save all those exports on a cloud ongoing,
Right.
right? So that if anything happens, you've got it backed up, right?
100%. No,
Yeah.
I think that's a good point about kind of just a data management expert. Identify that, it's probably an inside person who really knows this stuff. I mean, I think in today's kind of environment, that's almost a must because there's so much data driven on the lead generation side. Like every part of the process now has a lot of data associated with it. So finding someone in your organization that eats this stuff up, kind of like I do, right? Like find that nerd, if you will, that likes
Hmm.
to do this stuff and help guide them with what the business is trying to do. And I bet they'll be able to come up with, oh, we have this and this, and and that can help a lot too. It's just I think it's important to have that data champion on there for sure.
Yeah, I asked that question on the last webinar. Do you have an in-house data champion? And it's kind of a 50-50 split. And to your point, finding that person, it doesn't have to be a salesperson. It can be anyone within the
Yeah.
organization, right? And
Yeah.
part of the beauty of the entrepreneurial spirit, especially in manufacturers rep agencies, is helping people grow professionally. And to me, there's an
Mhm.
opportunity to stretch somebody, to give them,
Yeah.
a responsibility to take ownership on something within the business that is going to stretch them and help them grow and give them a skill set that maybe they didn't have before. So finding that, one or two people, identifying a champion who's going to hold people accountable, not only to the system, but to keeping the data clean, huge step.
Yeah, enable that person, Ben, and tell the rest of you, like, hey, when they're asking you for this, because that's another thing as far as inefficiency, following up on long expired opportunities. Nobody wants to close it out, right? So like, but try and get in a habit of doing that. If it's 30 days past the bid date or whatever, like take a really hard look at it. Do we need to close that out? Because as long as that's sort of lingering open, you're not capturing that information. So that role can also kind of challenge the other parts of the organization to say, hey, this has been, expired for 45 days. Do we need to, close this one out? That kind of thing.
I've got a question because it's very common that I see leadership within rep agencies want to gain adoption within the system, and they implement it. They put all the work and time investing in getting the system up and running, and then at the leadership level, they're not as familiar with the system as the users are. They look at the top level reports, right? Maybe they've got some sort of visual tool that's helping them tie in all of the reports, so that they just look at it on a daily basis. How important do you think it is for leadership to have an understanding of how the tool works, especially for manufacturers rep agencies?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important. I think what distinction you're making is between sort of the user that wants to gain insight, look at the big picture that's coming out of the CRM versus the user that's the everyday experience of being in the CRM. And those are two very different users, right?
Right. Yeah.
So when you design these systems, if it's being spearheaded by leadership, there could be, a tendency to overlook some of that detail, right? So, I mean, I would go to a lot of best practices. Again, it kind of goes back to that don't overcomplicate it thing. Keep it simple. Have the buy-in from the people that are going to use it. Bring them in. Like what I always suggest doing is kind of workshopping the whole flow of the process that you do. And in construction, we kind of outlined that already. There's like a project identification, but walk through each of those steps. Okay, now we quote, then we're awarded, now we have to fulfill, and then there's some sort of aftermarket service component. So think about those steps and bring the people in that have to use it. And if you're using something already and this is happening because, hey, there's we put this CRM in and we've only got 10% of people using it, we call a meeting, everybody's frustrated, we spent all this money. Get those people involved and allow them to voice what is making the adoption challenging and work with them. I mean, I've been part of those teams multiple times, and we get post-it notes out and whiteboard and walk through this thing. What do we need to do? Take the CRM out of it? What does our sales process look like? And then have the CRM fill in the gaps to capture the information that's critical, and your management, they're going to be mostly at the manufacturer level and I'm sure at the management level at the manufacturer's reps as well. It's going to be looking at more of that total picture. What's the total funnel? How successful are we at a pretty general basis in different categories? But then somebody's got to be in there and using it. So if your organization is too big, that's not feasible to bring all those people into a workshop like that, pick some champions, right? That maybe know or are passionate about this stuff. Bring them in, walk through the whole process, and they represent the buy-in from the sales organization. I think that's critical when you're setting these up.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree. Let everyone have a voice,
Yeah.
right? Because like you said, there's two user experiences, and that was a great way to describe that. You've got two user experiences. You've got the one high level reporting wants to get the data to use to make decisions, and then you've got the everyday user who's inputting the information, and so basically sales and management at the end of the day.
Yep. Pretty much. Yep.
Looking at that, We've got users here on the call, on the webinar, and we've got a variety of systems that are being used. But ultimately, I would imagine that the things that you want to measure should be similar, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And no matter what system you're using. So let's dig in a little bit deeper into what key metrics should manufacturers reps track to measure the effectiveness of their CRM practices, right? And make sure that it's actually going well. And how can they use this data to make improvements, right? Because we're talking about getting everybody in a room, but how can they measure it? And what metrics should they measure?
Right. Yeah. I mean, and this will all feed into also showing the manufacturers that you're representing, high value, right? By bringing information like this. So we touched on hit rate and then slicing that by a couple different categories. So products, manufacturer, segments. By what I mean by that, and segments would be like contractors, engineers, right? Which are you most successful with? What's your highest hit rate with those different groups? So you want to make sure that you have the field set up so you can capture those entities. So hit rate, look at your different manufacturers. Also I would say that the total quote funnel. So I know this is part of your curriculum for your training, but this feeds right into it because if you know your hit rate and you know your sales target, then you should be able to calculate what your total pipeline needs to be, right? And then you can represent that in the CRM, and it's an aggregate of all the actual projects and opportunities that you're touching, right? So it's not just that gut feel, how we're going to do by the end of the year type thing. It's like, no, we have 5 million in the pipeline, and we know that our hit rate is roughly 15%. So we have sort of a prediction if we're on track or off track. Do we need to focus more on lead generation and going and finding more opportunities? Or do we need to focus on maybe executing more, or whatever that might be? It can guide you to that. So I would say hit rate, total funnel value. So looking, and that's just once you have all your information there, that's just a sum of the opportunity value across all those opportunities in there. And then I think one thing we haven't hit on yet is, salespeople, I think, inherently are pretty competitive, right? So, you could even have leaderboards by hit rate and total conversions, right? Depending on how you receive orders and how you track that part of the process, which is sometimes a little tricky, you may or may not have to manually close out the orders like we were talking about, like we actually did win this one. But there are also integrations that can help you do that. That's sometimes a roadblock in getting that information. But yeah, I mean, I think that those are some of the most, you start to show your sales team direct performance and then challenge them, be like, hey, I know you're spending a lot of time with this customer, but our hit rate's like 5%.
Right.
So, and I would say this too. I mean, I have never worked for a manufacturer that used this in any type of really big brother activity tracking way. It was never the real intent of it. Most of the time, from the manufacturer's perspective, what we were trying to understand had a lot to do with inventory planning. So if we know what the total funnel is, can we use, and we have big projects coming down the pipeline, how do we put the best delivery out in front of those customers? That was the primary driver for a lot of the CRM activity that I've been involved with. Most sales VPs and sales management at that level at a manufacturing company do not have the time to look at what everyone is doing. So I haven't seen those types of data on activity really being that effective or valuable from a manufacturer's perspective. So I wouldn't worry too much about unless you're absolutely being dictated to do it. But I don't see a tremendous amount of value in that necessarily.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. These manufacturers are in a position where they want to make sure, especially coming off the heels of COVID, that they've got the stock ready and positioned in your local market to serve the projects or the end user with that product as quickly as possible. And if there's going to be spikes or dips, as partners, it's really important to understand and share the insights that you have around what's coming down the pipeline, whether that's an up or a down, so that the manufacturer can adjust accordingly. There's a lot of manufacturers out there that have practices in place that if a product is sitting on the shelf for too long because they've made too much, they end up just throwing it out, literally, or liquidating it, because it becomes, especially the public companies, right? They're like, yeah, this is dead inventory, right? There's no value to it.
Burning cash. Yep,
burning
absolutely.
cash, right? So there's like, I think it's like most manufacturers, like 1 year. It's a 1 year turnaround, right? So
yeah, I mean, in commercial, that could be the case. On industrial stuff, you see more of like a 2-3 year cycle, but it's certainly a review that every manufacturer I've worked for has done on just about an annual basis, which is to scrub out those types of slow moving inventory. Yeah.
Yeah, slow or obsolete, right? Yeah,
correct.
So some people call it the slob
Yep.
process.
I have definitely heard it called that.
So as a manufacturer's rep, there's so much value in having a real clear line of sight, clean data, what projects are coming, what opportunities you're working on, where you are in the sales cycle, what your potential for closing that opportunity is based on your hit rates, the customer, all this stuff. And you can build that over time in your CRM. And then you share that with the manufacturer and say, look, we're going to have a spike in need here of product in the next 3 months. Can you meet that? Right? And you can set yourself up for success and set the manufacturer up for success and grow together far more efficiently with that clarity around inventory needs, right? I was working with a manufacturer, did a training for them in January. And that was his biggest challenge. The sales manager for this organization was like, our biggest challenge is understanding what's coming down the pipe from our rep agencies in the local markets, right? Rep agencies are the experts in the local markets. They've got their pulse on what's happening. We rely on them to feed us the information so that we're ready to supply.
Right.
And oftentimes it's last minute shares. And it becomes difficult, right? So these types of systems, if you're measuring total pipeline, if you're measuring hit rate, if you're generating reports on an ongoing basis and you're getting with your team and evaluating how accurate this stuff is, man, you can position yourself with so much value with these manufacturers. They're going to seek you out. They're going to seek you out.
Just to tag on to that, I mean, I would say that, there's probably been opportunities that you've had where you've needed more inventory on the ground. You needed it closer to your area, and the manufacturer's not hearing it, right? They got a ton of other things going on. This data that you capture in the CRM, now you have a business case. You're building this business case to show them, where it's like, look, I missed this number of opportunities over the last year. Maybe, you find out that in another region, they're having exactly the same problem. You start to really, that speaks volumes. And I find that generally manufacturers reps seem to be a little bit more in tune with the market sometimes, than sometimes even direct sales staff, right? Like there's like a different, a different type of hunger. You get some good intel and they see a couple different sides of the business. So it's highly valuable. Just again, coming from the manufacturer's perspective, when you get that intelligence and good data.
I'm going to launch another poll here. This goes back to Kyle's comment around the first webinar I hosted, which I call the Precision Pipeline Index. And that's knowing, based on hit rate, based on your revenue targets, how many opportunities you need in your pipeline to hit your annual sales target, whether that's project or end user conversions or wholesaler stocking opportunities. Do you know? And if you don't, happy to help. But this is certainly something really valuable You're working with your manufacturers, you're coming up with a collaborative revenue target for the end of the year. Most of the time you agree. But have you taken the time to establish what that really looks like? And that's where the CRM comes in. This is where the value of that CRM becomes so powerful. Because if you're tracking opportunities at a deep level and you're holding your team accountable to populating it every day with every lead that comes up, every opportunity that shows up on the road, and tracking it through the sales process and knowing what you won and what you lost, you can build that business case to say to your manufacturing partner, look, you want 10% growth this year? This is how many opportunities I need to close.
Exactly.
How are you going to help me do that? Number one, right?
Yep.
And number two, are you going to have enough stock to
Yep.
do that?
Yep.
Right? Because that's another thing. And because if we do this many opportunities, this is what it looks like. So it's a great level of insight that levels your game up as a manufacturer's rep agency, that gives you that power. It gives you that power, and it gives you that confidence. Imagine if every single one of your sales team members knew line by line, particularly for your most critical lines, how many opportunities they need to have, whether or not they have enough, and if they're working on the right ones at the right given time. And imagine how quickly they could exceed expectations and sales targets by doing that. That's the beauty of all of this.
Yeah. Well said.
Yeah. I would love to talk a little bit more about automation.
Yeah.
Within a CRM, right? Because a lot of the perception is that CRM is manual input, right? Especially at the sales level. Right. And to a certain extent it is. There is a responsibility there that you have to put information into the system. But can you share some examples of some process automation within the CRMs that you've worked with that have improved efficiencies and business outcomes?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, the biggest ones, in the last 5 years or so, the accessibility of API connections has exploded. So API is basically just a way for one application to talk to the data of another application, or pull that data, change that data. It's like when you log into an app and it says it integrates with your Outlook calendar. And then you can now see all of your Outlook calendar stuff. That's enabled by an API. So these allow you, so I would say that the simplest ones are those email integrations that we talked about a second ago, right? So this is basically, you got an email in your inbox and it's describing an opportunity and you want to capture that in your system. You can do, if you're on, I think it's Microsoft 365, you can set up the integration, and it's a one click to take the information from that email and create an opportunity. You don't even have to open up Salesforce or whatever CRM you're using. I know that Salesforce has this integration, but this is pretty commonplace now, type of stuff. So I would say look for email integrations. That's a simple one, an easy one to get set up, and definitely a massive time saver. I think you had Graham on last week, so I know he's talking about some AI stuff. But the meeting notes capabilities that have come out recently from different products like Fireflies, Read AI, I know is the one you use. In Microsoft Teams, the built-in product, these are massive time savers, and you can get that transcript, create a little summary, and then put that in the notes section of your CRM. It's saved forever. What a great record of what was discussed in that meeting. And you can leave yourself a free form long text field as a notes section to capture information like that. Every CRM will allow some sort of free form notes to be added. So some of these platforms offer more enhanced automation. So Microsoft Dynamics and Salesforce, and HubSpot too, both have built-in. In Salesforce, it's called flows. And what that does is it allows you to set up like a sequence of steps. When this happens, assign it to this person based on the zip code or something, whatever, however you might split it up. You can create that logic within those platforms and do that. But I would say another thing from the automation perspective, you can use products outside of your CRM like Zapier or Make.com. And these products allow you to, they're like drag and drop, no code tools. So you don't have to really understand the ins and outs of coding and do all of that. You just kind of move things around. I'm not saying it's
Right.
that simple, but what you can do here now is you can say, when I receive an email in this inbox, put this in my CRM. Maybe you have a website that has a contact us form, right? It's a pretty common application for this. You have a contact us form, somebody enters in that information. Maybe that right now today sends you an email, and then you have
Hmm.
to do all the other steps after that. With a product like Make.com or Zapier, you could set up an automation and map that information directly into your CRM, so that just happens without you having to touch it.
Wow.
Um, and these software, the software is really powerful. The automation on Make.com and Zapier, and then you can now kind of pair that up with AI, because you can also make API calls to OpenAI and receive information back from them. So if you had an email, one of the things that I've used it for, email is a bunch of unstructured data. It's just a bunch of words all over the place. There's not columns and rows. It's not nice and tidy like that. So you could have this read and then take that email as like, is this an opportunity? Just a piece of reference? You can label it. You can use the AI to label it and then use that label to run it through different workflows. Opportunities, I want to go to my CRM. I mean, these would get a little advanced, but I would check out Make.com and Zapier again if you find that data champion, someone who's really comfortable with this stuff, get them a license for that, and just there's a lot of already built-in integrations, and they'll head will start going like, what can I do with this with what's available to me? So
Yeah.
yeah, that's either built into the CRM or using something like Make.com or Zapier.
What about when it comes to, because we've got a lot of folks on the webinar today that are in the construction business. What about when it comes to like Dodge reports or Construct Connect reports? How
Yeah.
could you get those data sources into the CRM
Yeah,
in an automatic way?
yeah, absolutely. So you can utilize basically a combination of what I was just kind of describing, and
Hmm.
there it can really work for any lead source, right? So let's use Dodge in this example. So on a Dodge report, you have a total valuation of the project, you have the project name. Depending on what stage the project is in, it might have an architect, it might have the general contractor. It just depends where the project is in the whole process. So you can have AI read that Dodge report and then take out certain pieces of information and map those to areas in your CRM. So map the contractor name to the account name. If you've now set up your other fields in your CRM so that you have contractor, engineer, owner, and distributor, maybe you're capturing all that information, and you want to pull that in. You won't have distributor on a Dodge report, but you'll have contractor and engineer most likely once you get to the bidding stage. So that's a process called mapping, that you can utilize AI for. It's a little tricky for setup, but that's essentially how you would do that. You would want that information. I mean, you can manually enter this stuff too. I mean, the Dodge project is the opportunity, but in this way, using a combination of Make.com and OpenAI, you can automate that by having it read that Dodge report and pull that information out for you.
Yeah. And it's funny, we started this conversation off with keep it simple,
Yeah,
right?
I
Keep it
know.
simple. And then
Right.
as soon as you get into automation, it can sound quite difficult, right? It
Right.
can sound challenging. But what you're saying, Kyle, is that there are tools out there that if you have a dedicated resource in-house that's the expert on the CRM, becomes that dedicated resource, that they could, if they can wrap their head around the CRM, they can most certainly figure out how to use Zapier
Right.
or other tools that can allow them to map or connect
Sure.
APIs quite simply, as long as the information that you're getting is clean, and
Yeah.
and where it's going is clean. I got a quick question for the group here. How are you inputting your construction project reports into your CRM? Are you doing it manually? Are you automating it? Are you not doing it at all? What's your process look like these days? So
Yeah. And I think depending on, I like how you brought us full circle there, because we did say, keep it simple. I
yeah,
mean, but that is true, right? Like, don't necessarily, you don't have to start with all these. If you don't have a CRM today, step one is getting one,
yeah.
and starting to get some information in there, get your team used to it. Drive your meetings from your CRM opportunity list, right? Like, use that, share that screen and walk through everything so everybody knows, like, this is what I'm expected to report on in these meetings, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
those kind of techniques can help a little bit too.
There's so many people within the organization that you work for that can benefit from the CRM, right? We often think, to me, the simplest way to implement a CRM, start with the sales team, right?
Mhm.
Start with sales, track opportunities, track projects, track your hit rates, so you can measure. You can't grow that what you cannot measure.
Right, right.
So you need to have something in place in order to drive that growth and measure the impact of what's working and what's not, so that you can shift your strategy. And the CRM helps you do that.
Right.
And a lot of veteran salespeople, they're very skilled at growing business and keeping things in their mind, but things are moving a lot faster today. Expectations are different from our manufacturing partners. You've got all kinds of data you're collecting already through email, through other sources. Why not just
Right.
put it all in one place, right? You're as a sales rep, you're gonna look at the Dodge report. As a sales rep, you're gonna look at your email for that opportunity. Like, it's all about centralization. But
Yeah.
how can, talking about the other departments, how can CRM systems facilitate better cross-functional collaboration within
Yeah.
an organization?
Yeah,
And
for sure.
yeah, what do you think?
I mean, think about the benefits that you get from. I know you're a big Teams fan, because we've shared a lot of stuff on Teams together. Think about the benefits you get from having resources like Teams, where you can put one central tracking spreadsheet or something where everybody's on the same page. Everybody can access it 24/7. When someone makes an update, it's updating live through the whole system. Everybody sees that update. The CRM is exactly the same, right? So it's this centralized record of everything that's going on at the customer level, that I can log into and see, if we're on the same sales team, I can see, how that meeting went, or what opportunities are open. Maybe I just got a call from a customer, and I want to see what's open with them, or I'm going into a meeting. And I was on vacation last week, so somebody covered for me, and there were two opportunities that came through, right? Can
Hmm.
log into the CRM to see what's going on with those, and just get a quick snapshot of what this customer is dealing with at this time. It's a big difference if you're walking in, and a customer's got this big project that they're chasing, and or maybe even like product is late or something. I mean, all this information can be really valuable. So the same way you would use a tool like Teams to share information in a way that it can be edited from anyone's perspective, control what needs to be controlled, but the users can edit and then almost publish those edits and changes to the whole community of the sales team, and everybody benefits from that knowledge, right? Everybody
Hmm.
benefits from knowing which contractors you're most successful with, which product lines you're most successful with, so that they also don't burn the calories on the ones that are, that we struggle with. Like, that's just, it brings the whole group up by sharing that information.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree. I think knowledge is power, and the more you have this one source of information to everyone that everyone is in tune with,
Hmm.
uh, everyone can benefit. I want to open the floor up here for a few questions. We're approaching the end of this webinar. If you've got any questions, type them in the chat. We've got a few minutes. We've got our expert Kyle here on the line. Perhaps he can answer something for you. So I see Michael Stringer's typing something.
Fire away.
Yeah, fire away. Any other questions, please bring them up. I'll give everyone a few seconds to write down any questions.
Yeah, and I like what you said too about having sales engage, leading with sales, because again, this is a tool that's supposed to help you guys. I had a guy that was really fighting me on adoption and CRM. He was a VP. It was really tough. But once I showed him how he could use it to bolster his business cases, he was a believer then, and he realized that he could use it for his, what he was trying to do.
Yeah, and that kind of lends perfectly to Michael's question. What's your best advice for team adoption, right? Particularly when it comes to old boys, new tricks.
Yeah. Again, I think you've got to show how it can help them in their business. So if, for example, the VP that I was working with, he was having trouble getting together these business cases to get big things moved through the organization. So it wasn't until I said, look, let's get all of the opportunities. Let's show how many we missed because of price. And then we've got this stronger argument that the price is off. It was a particular pricing challenge that we were having in this situation. And he was, convinced that that was the problem, and manufacturer wasn't listening to him, right? So you build this case up and then you show that. The other thing I would say on adoption is put some leaderboards together. Literally every single organization I have been to, the adoption of Salesforce is correlated with the individual's performance. The top performers use the CRM the most. I said Salesforce again. I had to kind of interchange those, but use the CRMs the most are your highest performers, and there's a reason for that, and because they realize the benefit that they're getting from this. So put up a leaderboard. Last login is a good one, right? Just last time logged in. That should be every day for your sales team, right? So you quickly see if that one strays off track. You can do total pages visited. There's all types of kinds of analytics. I would make that public. Again, salespeople are kind of inherently competitive. Make it a challenge. Make it fun in some way. Who gets the highest completion rate? And then just one more thing to capture those incomplete records. You can run different views where just filter blank, filter for empties, and then just have that report running so you can quickly identify, oh, I didn't capture everything in there, and you get that in.
Yeah. A couple of things that have worked quite effectively for myself and for some of my clients is partnering up your high performing CRM people with somebody who could use their assistance and have them mentor them. Right? A mentorship program, so to speak. They check in on a daily basis. They help them input things like that. Because some people are going to pick it up a lot quicker than others, that's for sure. But having that accountability partner is a big piece. And having structured meetings, whether that's a weekly or a bi-weekly meeting as with your individual contributor or with your team, and have them show up with their opportunity pipeline, with their hit rates, with their precision pipeline index, knowing all of these things, and getting them to come prepared, and having to use the system as part of that preparation will increase adoption. Absolutely. So I just want to remind everyone here that I sent out a cancellation. So next week we're going to be rescheduling the webinar from next week. I'll keep everyone posted on what date that will be. All right. So as you can see, August 8th, we will be rescheduling, but we're still on for August 15th. So I look forward to that conversation. We'll likely have one on the 21st right after. And before we wrap this up, I would appreciate if everyone would take the time to just complete a survey real quick here. I know many of you have participated in numerous of these webinars. But I'm going to put a QR code up here. Feel free to leave us some feedback. Really appreciate that. That would be amazing. And Kyle, I want to thank you very much for your time today. I know we could talk about this for hours. I think you hit on some really important things that are going to benefit our attendees. So thank you for sharing your expertise. and have yourself. We look forward to talking to you again soon, brother. I appreciate
Oh, this
your
was a
time.
lot of fun. So thank you. And if anybody has any questions, just fire them my way, and we'll see what we can do.
Excellent.
All right.
All right, everyone, have yourselves a great rest of your day. I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks' time, and reach out directly if you have any questions and want to connect.